About. Hello, everybody. Thanks for attending our webinar on how to prepare your judges for your speech tech contest. So the presentation has been prepared and will be given by Marlene Kane, who was the director of the speech tech program for the last 5 years and has numerous years of experience in conducting speech track contests at her local branch, as well as being a judge for many different types of speech contests. And she's a Toastmasters champion, Marlene, did you say? Is it?
Distinguished Toastmaster.
Distinguished Toastmaster with Toastmasters. So I will turn it over to Marlene. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lana. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody, to our How to Prepare Your Speech Track Judges. This webinar came about because of questions, and some of the branches were asking questions similar to these, and we thought, it'd be a good idea to hold a webinar on this very topic. So we will circle back to some of these questions at the end. And of course, if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to note them, and we'll have plenty of time after the presentation to answer all of your questions for sure. When you hold a briefing, of course, one of the main questions you want to make sure that your judges are aware is what the speech topic is. So I just wanted to remind you of this year's speech topic. How can we ensure a robust public school curriculum that's accessible to all and teaches historically accurate information? And once again, I'm very proud that we have seemingly looked into a crystal ball, because you can only have to look at newspapers and see what's happening at our universities to know that this is a very timely topic. Okay, so why a briefing? Why is that important to brief your judges? Aren't they experienced? Don't they know what to do? Well, there's a number of reasons to do that. Some of your judges may be brand new to speech track, and so you're going to want to introduce the program to them and explain how it works. You want to make sure that you can manage the expectations, what their role is and what the expectations are during a contest. If you brief them and they know what to do, then you're going to ensure a smooth running contest for sure. You're going to make sure it's fair and impartial, because you're having this briefing. And of course, you're going to answer any questions that they may have. So you can see a lot of reasons to have a planned briefing before the contest. Now, just a quick review, what you need for the contest, just a quick review for you. Of course, you need the contest officials. Those are the judges. And there's a judging team, including just the judges, but timers, of course, and ballot counters. You need an MC or someone to introduce the contestants and be the host of the contest. Of course, you need contestants for a good contest, and an audience as well. You need a date, and this is especially important to have a firm date, because when you're recruiting your judges, you have to make sure they're available on that particular date. And of course, you need a venue and a videographer, because as you know, all speeches are taped so that the winner can be uploaded for future judging. Now, I don't know how many branches this year are having a virtual conference or virtual contest. I think most branches this year have returned to having them live. If you are having a virtual conference, you can certainly know that you need a video conferencing program such as Zoom if you have a virtual contest. And you need $25. That remains our entry fee and does help defray some of the cost of the contest. We are going to focus on the contest officials, especially the judges, for the purpose of this webinar. So it's really helpful to understand that there's really two briefings that go on if you want to have a really smooth running contest. You want to have your contestants briefed, and you want to have your judges briefed. So just as a quick reminder, your MC or your host or your speech track chair, I mean, sometimes this is the same person. It can be different people if you have a larger committee, larger branch, but it's that person who will brief the contestants. And I just want to throw this in because it's equally important as is briefing the judges. So when you brief the contestants, these are some of the things that you would want to do when you hold that briefing. You just review the rules, of course. You make sure that the signed documents are in receipt, because nobody can participate until you have those in hand, those 2 signed documents that's in the toolkit. You want to make sure the contestants understand how the timing works and to demonstrate that at the venue. You want to confirm the date and the time of the contest, and of course, answer any of their questions. And most importantly, at this briefing for the contestants, you want to draw the speaking order so that they know who goes first, who goes second, and so on. But we're going to focus on the judging, of course, for this webinar. So the chief judge, or you can call it whatever you want. I call it the chief judge, the lead judge. That's the person who's going to oversee the judging part of your contest. And the chief judge is the one who will conduct the briefing prior to the contest. So the chief judge makes sure that they each have a ballot, which I'm going to go over that with you in a moment. The chief judge will also make sure that other members of the judging team, the timer, the ballot counters, they will also be briefed so they know what to do when the time comes. And the chief judge also oversees the counting of the results, which we'll go over in just a moment. So your judging team really consists of your judges and a timer. And I have here a second timer. A second timer, do you need a second timer? You don't have to have a second timer. It's nice to have a backup, though, in case your stopwatch or your cell phone stops suddenly and there goes your timing. And because timing is so critical in this contest, it's really kind of a security blanket to have a backup timer, and ballot counters to collect the ballots when the contest is over, when the judges have completed their ballots. So that really is your judging team. So when you're looking for a judge, and we'll talk about recruiting judges, when you're looking for a judge, really, you're looking for folks who can be fair and who are accurate and trustworthy, and they're knowledgeable. They're knowledgeable either in speeches or communication. I mean, you can't get a speech expert every time for a judge, but it's nice to know that they have some knowledge maybe in the topic. I mean, this year's topic, gosh, it'd be nice if someone was a judge who maybe had some knowledge of curriculum, for example. Hopefully they're a good listener and they're objective. And of course, I'm going to add a good judge is one who's available. And that's also, of course, very important. So the question was, how do we recruit judges? Where can we get judges from? Well, the best news is for you is to remind you that AAUW members are now allowed to be judges, which is great news for many of our branches. But in addition, we encourage you to draw judges from your community. For example, your service organizations, Lions or Rotary, leadership organizations like Toastmasters International, your local government, city councils, or your field representatives, your local chamber of commerce. Those are all excellent places to draw judges. Local business owners are often very happy to oblige you in judging. Go to Soroptimists, go to NOW, go to other organizations that might be really amenable to helping you out, for sure. And retired educators are an excellent source for being a judge as well. So you see, there's many, many different avenues for you to choose judges. I know at the semifinals that I used to have to recruit judges for. They came out of government, they came out of education, business, entrepreneurs. There were some entrepreneurs on those panels, and they made excellent judges too. And of course, some AAUW members as well. Here's an example, make sure, right? Here's an example of how to invite them to your briefing. This is right from my own files. This is an email that I sent to my semifinal judges. And you can see I highlighted in yellow for you so that you could see it. Thank goodness for Zoom. Zoom is a great tool for me to have these briefings. People can do it right from their living room. And I tell them what it is for, what the topic is, when it is, how it's being held, the time. And in this case, I put 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time because I had judges outside the Pacific Standard Time Zone. So I included the time zone and the purpose. I told them pretty much what the agenda was going to be, what we were going to talk about. And I ended by saying I would email the Zoom link about an hour before the briefing, and I thanked them for participating as judges. You know, judging can be a thankless job, and it's really nice that they're spending this time and being thoughtful in their deliberations, and it's really nice to thank them for all the effort they're going to put into it. By the way, you notice the logo there. I do encourage you to use our logo every time you have a communication. Put it on your flyers, on a program, on your emails. It's a wonderful thing to have. So here's a sample agenda. What would you talk about at the briefing? This is a sample agenda. You might, and this is how I do it. For example, I always welcome them. And because it's a small group, I like to have them introduce themselves. And we kind of go around the room, our Zoom room. And then I explain the SpeechTrack program, even for experienced judges. I just remind them what the SpeechTrack program is and give an overview. And this is especially helpful for inexperienced or new judges. They appreciate knowing what's going on. A key part of my briefing is to review the ballot. Of course, that's their key tool. And we review the ballot. I can tell you as a speech judge for other contests, there was no briefing, and I was handed a ballot and expected to be a judge within minutes of the contest. And I can tell you that's very unsettling. So this is very much appreciated by your judges. So then I explain how to complete the ballot and how to rank the winners and to make sure they sign their ballot. And I also explain the role of a tie-breaking judge. And I'll give you a little bit more information on that, but briefly, a tie-breaking judge, their ballot is only used in the event of a tie. And we'll go into more details about that. And I tell them what's going to happen during the contest and what's going to happen after the contest. So they are really thoroughly informed as to what their role is. And I make sure I thank them again for donating their time to this event. So one of the key issues here, as you all are familiar, I think, is the ballot. So what I like to point out, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but on the names of contestants here, I point out that these blanks here, these diagonal blanks, are designed for each contestant's name. And I show them that they only need one ballot for, I don't know how many, 3, 4, 5. We have like 10 or 12 spaces here for 10 or 12 contestants. Now, some branches prefer to have one ballot per contestant, and that's up to you. This was designed for convenience of the judge, and many judges do appreciate that. One piece of paper for all the contestants. I also point out the topic is always at the top so that they can be reminded of the topic. And I also point out that this is a 50-50 contest. In other words, content is 50% of the score, and delivery is 50% of the score. And I make sure that they're aware of that what the contestant says is as important as how they say it, and vice versa. And I explain a little bit about the actual ballot, the content, how it's divided into introduction and so forth, organization and conclusion. And then there's the delivery. And I show them the point values, how they add up to 100, and how it's 50 points content, 50 points delivery, where to total it up, and how to rank them. And then I point out to make sure they print and sign their name so we know whose ballot it is. And of course, I ask if there's any questions, and we go over it as much as they need me to do that. I encourage a separate briefing for the rest of your team, the timer, for example, because really at the judge's briefing, the timer is not concerned with any of those issues. Just like the judges are not concerned with timing, not at all. And I make sure they're aware of that. They don't have to worry about timing or anything. We have a separate timer for that function. All they have to be concerned about is what the person's saying and how they're saying it, the speech itself. So a separate briefing for the timer is not long, but you just want to make sure they understand what to do at the contest. So that means review what the timing rules are and help them understand the timing mechanism. In my branch, we use yellow, green, or red cards in my branch. And we make sure that the timer understands when to hold and raise the green card, when to hold and raise and hold the yellow card, and when to raise and hold the red card, and to make sure to hold the red card up there until the contestant is done. And we help them understand how to record the time for each contestant. And that's just really helpful for them to know. Also, it's a good idea to brief the ballot counter, and their job is not difficult, but it's good to let them know what they're expected to do. And that is that they collect the ballots when the judges have completed them. So the judge will raise their ballot and the ballot counter will come around and pick up the ballot. And when they have all the ballots, the chief judge will let the MC know that all the ballots have been collected, and they will exit to a separate room and start the tally. At the briefing, I also let them know what will happen at the contest. I mean, a lot of judges ask me, well, where do I sit? Is there a special place I have to sit, and so forth? We recommend they can sit anywhere in the audience, as long as they can hear the candidate or the contestant, and see the contestant well. That's the main thing. And we make sure that each judge has a ballot and has a pen, hopefully. It may be helpful to provide a little clipboard or something for them to write on, perhaps, if you want to. We let them know at the briefing that they'll have about 1 minute between contestants to mark their ballot. And then at the end, with the final contestant, they'll have as much time as they need to finish their ballot. Okay, so they're going to finish marking their ballot. They're going to add up their score, rank the winners, and make sure their ballot is signed. So when they're done with their ballot, I also tell them at the briefing to stay in their seats. All they have to do is fold their ballot in half, hold it up, and a ballot counter will come around and collect it from them. Once they have all the ballots, then the chief judge and the ballot counter will exit, go to a separate area, and they'll begin the official tally. Okay, so here's back to these frequently asked questions. I thought I would include these in case some of these questions might be yours, or you might have others, but I thought I would start. So how many judges should we have? Does anyone have an answer for that?
3, isn't it 3?
Well, 3 is a good number. There's no hard and fast rule. It kind of depends on how many contestants you have. So let's say you have 3 contestants. 3 judges would be certainly adequate. Let's say you have 10 contestants. You might want a few more for that in that case. It's always nice actually to have a few more judges than you think you may need, because what often happens, you're dealing with volunteers, and what often happens, people get sick, people forget, oh my gosh, there's a conflict, and they have to drop out. So it's great to have a little bit of a cushion in that way. Why might we want a second timer? I kind of alluded to that. It's nice to have a backup timer in case something happens with the primary timer. Or you might want help. My branch has 2 timers because the primary timer is watching the stopwatch or the clock, and the helper, the second timer, is holding up the cards, and they work together as a team. Don't have to, but that's how my branch likes to do it. Let's see, can my branch have its own ballot? Yes, you may have. If you don't want to use the state ballot, you may use your own ballot. However, is that a best practice? I think it's advantageous for you to use the state ballot because that's the same criteria that the semifinals judges and the finals judges use. That's what they use. So I would just caution you, if you use your own ballot, just make sure that you are assessing and evaluating the same areas, 50% content, 50% delivery. Okay. When can we acknowledge our judges? This has come up many times and I appreciate that you want to acknowledge your judges, and I support that. However, not before the contest. After the contest is the best practice. Why? If you acknowledge them before the contest, or you put their names in your program, then they become known to the audience and, more importantly, to the contestants. It's best for a judge to remain anonymous, both for their ease in being completely anonymous and having the freedom to mark their ballot, and for the contestants, because the contestants might be encouraged to take their eye contact to that judge if they know who it is, for example, and that's going to detract from their speech. So best practice is keep the judges anonymous. However, after the contest, please acknowledge them if you want to do that and give them a hearty shout out. That would be great. What if a judge's ballot, they mark their ballot and they have a tie? Well, I would say,
Tiebreaker comes in.
right. If they mark their ballot and they realize, oh my gosh, I have a tie for first place. I have a tie for first place. Then in the briefing, I address this up front. I say, if you find that you have a tie, it's your responsibility to break that tie. Okay. Go back to your ballot, go back to your whatever notes you may have taken and make that determination and break that tie, because we don't want to give a tie ballots, to the ballot counters. Okay. So if there's a tie at one of the judges has their tie on their ballot, remind them, please break that tie. Okay. However, what if there's a tie after all the ballots have been tallied and there's a tie in the judge's counting area and there's a tie? That's when the tiebreaker ballot comes into play. So if that's the case, what happens is, and you don't have, no one sees this out in the audience. This happens in the judge's room. If there's a tie, that's when and only when the tiebreaker's ballot is opened. And however that tiebreaker judge those contestants, that is what breaks the tie. If there's no tie, that tiebreaker's ballot is never opened. Okay. By the way, what happens? I'm going to ask you, what happens after the contest is over to all the ballots?
I don't know.
Yeah. Best practice, shred them. When the contest is over, take those ballots and shred them. They should not be left around for people to see or anything. Just the contest is over. Judges' decisions are final. They should be disposed of. Okay. All right. I am open for questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
How far in advance of the speech contest do you recommend doing the briefing?
Roughly maybe 3 to 5 days. Now some branches hold their briefing the night of the contest. With Zoom, however, it's so much more productive, I have found, to do it ahead of time. You can always touch base with the judges at the contest if you want to, just for 10 minutes or so. You certainly can. And that's probably a good idea. But I would say the week before, 3, 4, or 5 days before.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. What else? Any other questions?
I have another one.
Okay.
Does. So if you are having a Zoom contest, how do you collect the ballots from the judges?
Right. If you're having a virtual contest, there's several different ways branches have done this. I'm trying to remember our own branch when we did it. Margot, do you remember how we did it?
No, because I wasn't involved when we.
I think what it was, they electronically sent the ballots to the chief judge and did it that way. It was all electronic. So I can't remember, it was all digital. So it was either done by text or by email, and collected and they tallied the ballots and did it that way.
Okay.
However, I think the majority of branches, if I'm correct, I don't know if you know this, Lana, I think the majority of branches are doing in-person contests this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And in an in-person contest, if the judges are sitting among the audience, how do you ensure that the judges are not interacting and getting input from other people that are sitting close to them?
Well, I mean, during the briefing, you point out to the judges that these are independent decisions. These are not to be, this is not a conference call. And I don't know, I think most judges are professional enough to understand that believe me, they're busy. They're listening, they're watching, they don't have time to chat with anybody. And that would certainly be unethical, right? So if you feel the need to reiterate that to your judges during your briefing, you certainly can. But I think I haven't had that problem, actually. I have not encountered that issue.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Margot, you had a question?
I did have a question, even though we've already done it.
Yeah.
And I can never remember, does the tiebreaker judge know that they're the tiebreaker judge?
That's a great question. I thank you for bringing that up. A best practice, I would say that during the briefing, you let the judges know that one of you will be a tiebreaker judge. I would not identify who it is. I would then privately tell whoever you want to be the tiebreaker judge and ask them to keep it to themselves. And that seems to work the best.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Did we do that? Is that what you did? Did you
Yeah.
tell?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I don't even remember who the tiebreaker judge was.
I know. I know you don't.
So that's good.
Right, right. Let me add a couple things quickly here since we have some time. If a contestant goes under or over time, they're disqualified, correct? Right, they're
Yes.
disqualified. Right. So how is that communicated to the audience? So the best way to do that, what happens is this is all discovered in the judges when they're counting the ballots, right? And the timer presents her report to the chief judge, and the timer will let them know contestant number 2 was under time, or contestant number 3 was overtime. So that means they're disqualified. So then after they complete their tally, they hand those results to the MC and or whoever is announcing the winners. And before they announce the winners, they will say, we did have one contestant disqualified for time. Or you don't even have to say time. Well, you could say that. You have one, but you don't name them, right?
Right.
You just say we have
They're
one.
not identified.
They're not identified, right?
Okay.
And then you would proceed and give your first, second, and third place if you're having a third place, depending on how many contestants you have. Yeah. Any other questions? Let's see if I have anything else here.
Well, I have a question. So
Yeah.
the chief judge is the one that holds the briefing. I'm wondering, is it possible, like myself, I'm the chair, could I hold the briefing, or
Sure.
should it definitely be the chief judge?
Well, I mean, if you have a chief judge, if you have a chief judge, that would be the optimum. If you don't have a chief judge and you're fulfilling that role, in other words, if you hold the briefing, that would tell me that you're probably going to be overseeing that part of it too. You're going to handle the ballots, and right, if that's what's happening, then that's fine, right? But if you have a chief judge or someone who's taking over that function, it's best if they have the briefing. Or you can attend the briefing with that person if you don't think that they have all, you want to do it together.
So if I was, say, the ballot counter, I could be the ballot counter and hold the briefing too, or I'm not quite understanding.
Okay, the person who holds the briefing should be the one most knowledgeable about the judging process.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the person who's, I don't care what chief judge, lead judge, whatever, the chair could do it, but that person is going to be briefing the judges on all the things we just discussed, right? What's going to happen? Here's the ballot. Here's, right? They're going to brief them and answer any questions that they may have, like you are now. You're asking me some questions. So the ballot counter should attend that briefing so they know what's going to happen with them, or they can attend the other briefings. In other words, the judge's briefing is solely about what the judge's responsibilities are. I would suggest briefing your timer and ballot counter separately, because their role is different. They're not concerned with the speeches at all, right? The timer is just concerned with the timing, and the ballot counter is just concerned with collecting the ballots and that part of it.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, if you ever have any questions, you can always give Lana or me a call too. So or zip us an email.
And the red, yellow, and green cards that the timer uses, is that something that you acquire on your own, the branches, or? you use
Yeah,
a piece
I think
paper?
branches have different ways of doing it. The main thing is the timing is the same. The timing must be the same, and how you communicate that to your contestant must be consistent. So everyone, and it's in the toolkit. So I'll just reiterate, I don't have the timing cards with me, but let's say, let's see, here's a green card. So at 4.5 minutes, the speeches are 5 to 6 minutes, and there's a 30-second grace period on either side. So that means at 4.5 minutes, the timer raises the green card and holds it there. And then at 5.5 minutes, we'll call this on here, we'll call this yellow. Okay. The timer then raises the yellow card and holds it there. And then at 6 minutes, I need something. I don't have
The
a
red goes up.
Yeah, red. A red card, and holds it there until the speaker is done speaking. So whether you use red, yellow, and green, or you have a stoplight, or you have some other method, just make sure that it's clear to the contestant and that you're doing the timing the same as every other branch. That's really important because timing is critical. If a speaker speaks under 4.5 or over 6.5 minutes, they're disqualified. And we emphasize that when we talk to our contestants. And that's something that at the contestant briefing, you can go over. I hear it like silence. So,
All right, well, if there's no more questions, we'll wind it up. If a question comes to you after we close it out, feel free to drop us an email, either myself or Marlene, or phone call, text, whatever, and we'll address it at that time.
and I had one more slide here, but it's not, for some reason, it's not moving ahead. So we will let's see if I can. Oh, there we go.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome, and good luck with all your speech tracks. And I look forward to hearing many, many wonderful speeches.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Thanks, Marla.